Elliot's taproom sat on the edge of town like a weathered postcard. Faded red brick walls, neon beer signs buzzing in the windows, and a jukebox humming old country tunes through the smoky haze.
Welcome to Shadow Crime. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can continue creating even better content. Thank you so much. All right, let's get started.
The air inside carried the bite of whiskey and the murmur of Friday night regulars, farmers in flannel, truckers nursing beers, a few kids sneaking pool shots in the back. Terence Coleman stepped through the creaky door just after dusk, his duffel bag slung over one shoulder, boots scuffing. The warped hardwood. At 32, he was a broad man with deep brown skin and a close-cropped fade, his army fatigues traded for a plain black tee and jeans. After 18 months in the desert, dust in his lungs, orders in his ears, all he craved was a quiet corner and a cold one. He'd come home to Willow Creek unannounced. No parade, no fuss, just a Greyhound ticket and a plan to surprise his mom and little sister tomorrow. Tonight was for him. Terence picked a stool at the far end of the bar, near a cracked window letting in a sliver of cool October air. He dropped his bag, its faded U.S. Army patch catching the dim light, and nodded at the bartender, a grizzled guy named Hank with a gray ponytail and a limp. "Budweiser," Terence said, voice low, rough from months of shouting over Humvees. Hank slid it over, no words, just a grunt, and Terence settled in, shoulders easing as he took a sip. The beer was sharp, familiar, a tether to the life he'd left behind. He wasn't here to stand out. The taproom hummed around him. Laughter, clinking glasses, a Merle Haggard song scratching through the speakers. Terence traced a finger along, the bottle's condensation, thinking of his mum's cornbread, his sister's gap-toothed grin. He'd dodged IEDs, hauled gear through sandstorms, and now he just wanted to breathe. Feel the weight lift, even for a night. The bar stool creaked under him, the duffel slumped at his feet, and he let his guard down, eyes half closed, lost in the hum of home. But Willow Creek had changed, or maybe it hadn't. Across the room, a knot of locals, 3 guys in trucker hats, skin pale and sunburned, glanced his way, their chatter dipping. One, a lanky fellow with a patchy beard, nudged his buddy, smirking. Terence didn't catch the words, not yet, but the shift was there, a prickle on his neck. He took another sip, slow, steady, willing the night to stay simple. This was his town, his break. He'd earned it, hadn't he? A vet seeks peace, but will his hometown let him have it? Hit that like, this bar's about to stir. The jukebox in Elliot's taproom clicked over to Johnny Cash, a low strum cutting through the din, as Terence Coleman nursed his Budweiser in the corner. The bar's smoky haze thickened, the chatter a dull roar, until it sharpened, zeroing in on him. Across the room, the trio of locals, older guys, late 50s with leathery skin and trucker hats, had stopped pretending to ignore him. Leading the pack was Hank, not the bartender, but a wiry vet with a gray buzz cut and a faded Vietnam patch stitched onto his jacket. His buddies flanked him, Bill, stocky with a beer gut, and Roy, tall and gaunt, a toothpick rolling between his lips. They'd clocked Terence's duffel, the U.S. Army patch, and something snapped. Hank swaggered over, boots thudding, his crew trailing like hounds on a scent. He stopped a foot from Terence's stool, looming, breath sour with whiskey. "Well, ain't this cute," he drawled, loud enough to turn heads. "We got a soldier boy playing dress up." His eyes raked over Terence, black tee, jeans, and the scuffed gray Nikes on his feet. Bill chuckled, a wet, phlegmy sound. "Where's your boots, kid? Real grunts don't wear sneakers. Those for gym rats, not GIs." Roy spat his toothpick onto the floor, smirking. "Bet that bag's fake too. Probably stole it from some surplus store." Terence froze mid-sip, the bottle cold against his lips. He set it down slow, deliberate, his broad shoulders tensing under the tea. The bar quieted, pool cues paused, glasses clinked softer as eyes shifted his way. "I served," he said, voice steady, low, like he was stating a fact to a CO. Hank barked a laugh, slapping the bar. "Served? You? Nah, son. Real vets don't look like you strolling in all casual. What's your unit, huh? Prove it." Bill leaned in, jabbing a thick finger. "Yeah, let's see some ID, or you just posing for the gram." The taunts piled up, sharp, relentless. "Probably washed out basic," Roy sneered. "Ain't no soldier. Look at them shoes." Hank grinned, egging the room on, and a few regulars chuckled, though some shifted uneasily. Terrence's jaw tightened, a flicker of heat in his dark eyes, but he didn't rise. He'd faced worse, sandstorms, sniper fire, but this was home, and it stung deeper. His hand brushed the duffel, fingers tracing the patch he'd earned through blood and grit. They wanted a show. He wouldn't give it. Not yet. "Leave it," Terrence said, voice cutting through their jeers, calm as a still lake. He took a sip, eyes locked on Hank, who faltered for a split second before sneering again. "Oh, tough guy, huh? We'll see." The trio hovered, itching for a crack, but Terrence stayed rooted, stone-faced, steady, a soldier even now. The bar held its breath. A vet's welcome turned sour. Will he snap or stand tall? Smash that like. This night's getting loud. The air in Elliot's taproom crackled, thick with booze and bravado, as Hank loomed over Terrence Coleman's corner stool. The jukebox had faded to a low hum, some forgotten Waylon Jennings track, but no one noticed. Hank's grey buzzcut gleamed under the neon, his wiry frame coiled tight, whiskey flushing his cheeks. He'd been poking at Terrence for 10 minutes, slurs about sneakers, jabs at his duffel, egged on by Bill and Roy's snickers. The bar leaned in, a mix of smirks and side-eyes from the regulars waiting for the poser to crack. Terrence didn't, just sipped his bud, eyes steady, a wall of calm against their storm. Then Hank snapped. "You think you're hot shit, huh?" Hank growled, voice rising as he lunged, clawing for Terrence's collar with gnarled hands. The move was sloppy, fueled by liquor and pride, but fast enough to make Bill whoop, "Get him!" It didn't land. Terrence moved like lightning, years of drills kicking in, his broad frame twisting off the stool. One hand caught Hank's wrist, the other hooked his elbow, and in a blur, he yanked Hank's arm back, spinning him face first into the bar. A sharp thud echoed. Hank's cheek hit wood, his legs buckling, and Terrence pinned him there, one knee pressing his spine. 3 seconds tops. The bottle didn't even tip. The taproom went graveyard quiet. Bill's jaw hung slack, his beer, gut heaving as he froze mid-laugh. Roy's toothpick fell, rolling across the sticky floor, his gaunt face paling. The bartender, Hank the Elder, dropped a glass. It shattered behind the counter, but no one flinched. Regulars gaped, pool cues limp, cigarettes burning down to stubs, as Terrence stood over Hank, breathing steady, his black tee barely wrinkled. His Nikes squeaked faintly on the hardwood, a mocking echo of their taunts. "Stay down," he said, voice low, clipped, like an order to a rookie. Hank wheezed, pinned, pride leaking out with every grunt. The room shifted. A guy in a flannel muttered, "Holy hell, he's legit," and a woman near the jukebox nodded, eyes wide. Bill shuffled back, doubt creasing his sunburned brow. Roy's smirk was gone, replaced by a twitch. They'd marked a soldier, a real one, and the truth hit like a freight train. But Hank wasn't done. Shoving up as Terrence stepped back, he stumbled to his feet, face red, spit flying. "You're dead, punk," he roared, fumbling for his phone. "I'm calling the cops. Fake vet bastard assaulted me." His voice cracked, rage masking the shame, but the bar didn't buy it. Not anymore. Terrence straightened, duffel at his feet, hands loose at his sides. He didn't argue, didn't shout, just watched Hank dial, the old man's fingers trembling. The crowd murmured, some siding with Hank out of habit, others whispering, "That ain't no fake." Terrence's calm held a soldier's steel, even as sirens whined faintly in the distance. He'd taken down more than Hank tonight. He'd cracked their lies wide open. A bar brawl flips the script. Will the truth hold up? Hit that subscribe. This vet's not backing down. The red and blue lights of a Willow Creek patrol car sliced through the smoky haze outside Elliot's taproom, casting jittery shadows across the brick facade. Inside, the bar was a frozen tableau. Terence Coleman stood by his corner stool, broad frame still, duffel at his feet, his black tee faintly creased from the scuffle. Hank, the wiry vet with a bruised ego and a redder face, paced near the jukebox, phone clutched like a lifeline, spitting curses. "He's a fraud! Attacked! Me out of nowhere," he bellowed, voice hoarse, as Bill and Roy hovered behind, quieter now, their bravado leaking away. The regulars watched, pool cues idle, beers warming in their hands, as two cops pushed through the creaky door. Officer Mills, a stocky woman with a buzz cut, and Officer Tate, lanky with a notepad, already out. Mills scanned the room, her boots a thudding on the hardwood. "What's the story?" she barked, eyes flicking from Hank's disheveled jacket to Terence's calm stance. Hank jumped in, finger jabbing the air. "This punk's faking military. Look at them damn sneakers. He slammed me for no reason. Assault." His crew nodded weakly, but the bar's hum shifted. A woman in a denim skirt near the pool table piped up, voice sharp. "That's bullshit. Hank started it, lunged at him like a drunk fool." The bartender, grey ponytail swinging, nodded slow. "Kid didn't throw first, just took him down. Fast as hell." Terence didn't flinch. Hands loose at his sides, Mills turned to him, brow raised. "You got ID?" He reached into his duffel, pulling a worn leather wallet, fingers steady despite the stares, and handed over his driver's license and VA card, the edges frayed from years of carry. "Terence Coleman," he said, voice low, even. "Staff. Sergeant, 101st Airborne, 2 tours, Iraq, Afghan, discharged last month." Tate flipped through the cards, squinting at the dates, the seal, then whistled low. "Checks out." Mills took them, her stern face softening a tick as she read, "Honorable discharge, service ribbons listed crisp and clear." The room tilted. Hank's rant faltered. He's lying." But Mills shut him down, handing Terence his IDs with a nod. "Witnesses say you grabbed first," she said to Hank, stepping closer, her shadow swallowing his. He defended himself, clean by the look of it. The woman from the pool table smirked. A trucker in flannel clapped Terence's shoulder, muttering, "Good man." Bill and Roy shrank back, eyes darting, their sneers now dust. Hank's face twisted, spit flecking his lips. "Friggin' setup. Those cards are fake." Tate scribbled in his pad, voice dry. "Keep lying, Hank, and it's false reporting. Add that to disorderly conduct and you're in handcuffs." Mills crossed her arms, staring him down. "Walk away or we book you. Your call." Hank huffed, slamming his phone on a table. But the fight was gone. His crew slunk toward the door, heads low, the bar's laughter trailing them out. Terence exhaled, sliding his wallet back, the VA card catching a glint of neon. The cops tipped their hats, Mills with a gruff, "Welcome home, Sergeant," and left. The jukebox kicked back on, and the bar breathed again, eyes on Terence less wary, more warm. A vet's truth shuts down the haters. Will peace last? Smash that like. This bar's rewriting its tune. The late October sun dipped low over Willow Creek, painting Terence Coleman's childhood home in soft gold. A modest clapboard house with chipped white paint, a sagging porch, and a rusted mailbox stuffed with flyers. Inside, Terence sat at the kitchen table, a chipped mug of black coffee steaming beside him, his duffel still unpacked by the stairs. 4 days had passed since the showdown at Elliot's taproom, Hank's takedown, the cops' vindication, and the quiet was a balm. After months of desert noise, his mom bustled in the back, humming gospel, while his sister's laughter drifted from upstairs. He'd come home for this, not bar fights or badges, but peace felt fragile, the sting of Hank's crew still a faint echo. A knock rattled the screen door, sharp and hesitant. Terence glanced up, brow furrowing, and rose, his broad frame filling the hall as he peeked through the dusty blinds. Bill stood there, stocky, sunburned, his trucker hat crumpled in his hands instead of perched on his graying head. The guy who'd whooped when Hank lunged, who'd sneered about sneakers, looked smaller now, shoulders hunched, eyes darting like a kid caught stealing. Terence opened the door slow, leaning on the frame, voice flat. "What you want, Bill?" Bill shifted, boots scuffing the porch boards, his beer gut straining his faded flannel. I owe you an apology, Terence," he rasped, voice rough from years of smokes. "That night at Elliott's, I was an ass. Followed Hank like a damn dog, laughing when he, shouldn't have." He twisted the hat, knuckles white. "Thought you were some punk. Didn't figure a vetted roll-in looking like that. Was wrong. Dead wrong." His eyes flicked up, red-rimmed, honest but shaky. "Ain't. Proud of it. Trying to be better." Terence stood silent, arms crossed, the VA card's weight still fresh in his pocket. Bill's words hung there, raw, unpolished, like the man himself. Part of him wanted to slam the door, let the hurt from that night, the jeers, the spit, win. He'd hauled gear through hell, watched buddies fall, only to come home to that. But another part, the part that had pinned Hank without breaking, him, saw something else. Bill wasn't begging forgiveness, he was owning the mess. Terence's jaw worked, eyes narrowing as he weighed it. "You cheered him on," he said low, steady. "Called me a fake." Bill flinched, nodding. "I did. Ain't got an excuse, just stupidity and too much bud. You shut that down, showed us up. Made me think." He paused, swallowing. "Don't want to be that guy no more." The porch creaked, wind rustling the oaks out front, and Terence let the silence stretch. He didn't owe Bill a pass, didn't have to. But he saw his mom's. Bible on the counter, heard her humming Amazing Grace. People could shift. He'd seen it overseas, grunts turning grit into good. "I hear you," Terence finally said, voice even, not warm but not cold. "Appreciate it. Takes guts to show up." Bill exhaled, a flicker of relief in his lined face, but Terence didn't smile, just nodded once, firm. "Prove it out there, not just here." Bill tipped his hat, awkward, and shuffled off, truck rumbling away. Terence shut the door. Coffee. Cooling, a faint thaw in his chest. Change wasn't instant, but it started somewhere. A vet's grace meets a bully's regret. Can trust grow? Hit that subscribe. This homecoming's still healing. Terence Coleman's return to Willow Creek offers lessons that strike a chord for those who've weathered life's long haul. First, it reminds us that respect isn't a gift. It's a battle, even in places we call home. Terence, a soldier, hardened by war, sought peace only to face scorn from his own, judged not for his deeds, but his sneakers. For the elderly, this mirrors the quiet sting of being overlooked. Your slow steps, your gray hair dismissed as frailty, yet Terence stood firm, proving worth isn't worn on your sleeve, it's carried in your spine. You've earned your stripes. Two, through raising families, surviving hard years, so don't shrink when the world forgets. Hold your ground at the grocery line, the family table. Your presence still commands, if you claim it. Another truth emerges. Prejudice festers in the familiar, but so does redemption. Hank's crew, old enough to know better, let bias blind them. Yet Bill's porch apology cracked that open. For older folks, this is a nudge. The people you've known forever, neighbors, kin, might carry old grudges or stale views. But they can shift. You've seen decades of flaws, your own included, and that wisdom can spark change. Maybe it's not a bar fight you're settling, but a feud with a sibling, a misunderstanding with a friend. Offer that olive branch or accept one. Time's too short to cling to yesterday's fights. Bill didn't erase his wrong, but he stepped up. Proof that hearts, even weathered ones, can bend. Finally, Terence's story whispers patience. Real. Change is slow, like scars fading. He didn't lash out, didn't demand instant trust. He let truth and time do the work, from pinning Hank to nodding at Bill. For the elderly, this is your strength. You know healing isn't a sprint. That neighbor who snubs you, that grandkid who drifts, they might not turn today, but you're steady. And your quiet word plants seeds. Terrence rebuilt a sliver of Willow Creek, not with fists, but with grit and grace. You can too. Share that tale of your tough days. Listen when they vent. Small moves mend big breaks. This tale adds a layer for silver years. Your past isn't just memory, it's muscle. Terrence's tours gave him the skill to drop Hank, the calm to face Bill, and you've got your own arsenal. Years of lessons, losses, loves. Don't let them gather dust. That strength you found raising kids alone or working till your back ached, it's not gone. It's gold. Use it to bridge a gap at church in line with the mailman who rushes past. Age doesn't bench you, it equips you. Terrence came home to rest, but rose to reshape. You can rest too, but when the moment calls, your quiet power still turns heads, still mends what's torn.